three major issues that youth are facing. And those who are listening, you're going to hear these things and you're going to say, yeah, you're right. The number one issue, the one that was the most commonly spoken, was self-image. They struggle identifying who they are and finding their worth. They don't know who they are. They don't know whose they are. And that just totally destroys. They can't be successful if they look at themselves as a failure. They can't be successful if they do not feel like they're of value. That they feel like that there's nothing inside of them that's worth giving to this world.
Wow.
Number one problem.
There is something special inside you.
Welcome to GNG Podcast with your host, speaker, best-selling author, Chaz Jackson.
Yo, what's going on, kings and queens? It's your boy Chaz Jackson coming back to you once again, representing GNG Gift and the Gift. I am so honored to have this giant in front of me, James Mclamb. He's here to shine some light. You know, on this podcast, family, our motto here is we're all gifted differently to make a difference. And this is a difference maker that's in front of me right now. Are you ready to get it, James?
I'm excited to be able to join you on the show. That's the first time that a 5'7" man has ever been called a giant. In my lifetime, at least.
You are, John, in the personal development world, and some of the things I've seen that you've been doing, to empower our next generation. And when I say giant, I think it was Isaac Newton that said, if I've seen farther than others by standing on the shoulders of giants. So I really, truly believe that our young generation and parents, teachers, coaches are seeing further from the information and the value that you've been establishing and giving out to the world. So really good stuff. And and I know as far as all the things that you're doing in 2021. I would love for you to share with the audience your story, kind of what built you up to be as passionate as you are about leadership, personal development, and just, again, this adding value to people.
Chaz, I think I've always had a passion for my own personal development. Even in high school, I was probably the guy who always wanted to excel, whether it was through sports or through club organizations. I wish I could say that I was as committed to in high school to excelling in my academics as I wish I should have been. But in the other aspects, I ate that stuff up. So I was really a person who went after some of the real giants in personal development. And Zig Ziglar being probably the one that influenced me the most. And I came out of high school, went into college, worked with some student organizations there in leadership roles where I had an opportunity to share the things that I had learned about goal setting, about building a positive self-image, about having effective relationships with other students. That set a fire in me. I wanted to help more people. I really wanted to help a younger generation, those that were closer. So I went into teaching, and I was in the classroom for almost a decade, 8 years. Then when my oldest child was born, went into business for myself, but I never lost that passion that I had for working with people. Went into a family business, actually, my family's business, and took over leadership roles in that. Stayed in that for a number of years until I had the opportunity to get back involved with the Ziglar family. And it really became because I wanted my staff to be better human beings, not just better salespeople or better production managers or better workers. I wanted them to be better people. And so I started connecting back to some of those tapes and recordings. And young people, you know what a tape is? We used to have these things called cassette tapes. It wasn't digital back in the day. But I wanted them to connect with those same things that I was connecting with. And so I reconnected with a lot of the personal development material and resources that I had learned from Mr. Zig Ziglar. And for those in the audience who don't know, Mr. Ziglar is probably the father of modern motivational theory and speaking. He spoke to over 250 million people before there was a such thing as the internet, before you could get, 2 million views on a YouTube video, if it went viral, people had to get in their cars, purposely drive somewhere to hear him speak. I mean, there wasn't no streaming. There wasn't no, live things that they could just sit at home and watch. They had to do it in 250 million people. That's just unheard of.
That's impressive, man. I didn't really know that statistic. That's
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. I think his son has figured it somewhere around 40,000 times over his lifetime that he has presented something in one format or another, whether it's workshops or small presentations or keynotes. But he was the father of motivation, motivational theory, motivational speaking. The people who do that today owe most everything to him. And so I reconnected with them, and during that time, they were looking to certify trainers to take over spreading the message that Mr. Ziglar had spent a lifetime doing. He had passed away, and his son realized there was not going to be anyone else in their family that was going to reach 250 million people, so let's empower people to do this. So I joined their first class, and I joined there with this sole purpose and intent of taking Mr. Ziglar's timeless method, these principles of succeeding in life, not just succeeding financially, but succeeding as a person. I wanted to take those and present them in a way that younger generations could digest and they could make it a part of their life. I wanted to give the future generations to this. And so we created a company called Generation Ziglar. And Generation Ziglar, we call it Gen Z for short, is just that, taking Mr. Ziglar's message to future generations. We want to inspire the current generation, the next generation, to impact future generations. That's the whole purpose of what we do through our conferences, through our trainings, through the virtual things that we do, through our podcast now that has arisen because of COVID, because so many things had to go virtual. Everything we do is to be able to take the content that successful leaders understand. And as you know this, business people, they thrive on this success. They understand these principles, but sometimes there's a gap between what someone who is successful in life versus someone who is 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're just trying to get through a class so they can pass a end of course exam or end of grade exam. But there's so much more to life that we could teach them, so much more that they can learn. And some of them learn it in sports. You and I talked about that when you were a guest on our show. What a great laboratory for learning success principles that sports provide.
Right.
But what would you guess? Maybe only about 10, 15% of a student body actually is in sports?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter, my oldest 2 children graduated from school, probably around 2,500 students at that school. And I bet if you added all the athletes together and then, dealt with the ones that are in multiple athletes, I bet you wouldn't have more than 250 total. Maybe 300.
Yeah, but
and my son was on a football team. They had 60, and I would say out of the 60, 40 of them were plus were, playing at least one other sport or 2 other sports. So less
kind
than
of make
10%.
up the difference for that volume in the other sports. Yeah, because a lot of times 2 or 3 sports you could play in high school or in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's really good stuff. Thank you for diving deeper into your story. And I can tell you're really passionate about what you're doing. And Zig Ziglar, I know one of my favorite quotes of his is, success is not a destination, but it's a journey. And,
Amen.
And I know you're on an amazing journey. And I know you touched on Gen Ziglar, Gen Z, that's the name of your podcast. So whenever you hear me say Gen Z, what does that mean to you personally? Like, I know.
Well, Generation Z, we named it. It kind of fit because we wanted to talk to the youth of today, and that generation has been identified as Generation Z. And of course, that was too easy to resist. The Z, and then adding the Ziglar, so that made a really good name for us to be able to work with. But Gen Zs are roughly from their early 20s, 22 to 25, it would be their limit, on down to 12 to 10. It really is going to depend on how you classify them. Some people are saying that the age cutoff can be as low as 8, and some of them, but that is that generation. So we're looking at a generation that really does not have any visual memory of 9/11. That's really how you can classify them. If they were either not born or too young to remember 9/11, then that's kind of where they fall into. And COVID now is kind of be the cutoff point, and why some folks are saying that Generation Z may add a little bit more students, that we may say those who are too young to know anything other than being COVID. Those who are like 6 or 5, that they're coming to realizing how the world works around them, and all they know is a COVID world. That may be our next generation, which they're naming Generation Alpha. But there's some discrepancy on that. But basically, we're looking at early 20s to 10, somewhere along that line, about a 12 to 15 year gap. And that is the generation that we're working with now. Of course, we're going to work with the next generation when the Alpha comes along. We're going to work with them. We're going to work with the one after that. We're going to keep working with them until I'm called home. I'm not going to give up. What did Mr. Ziglar say? I'm not giving up yet. I just started up, or something. I can't remember. I'm not going to give up until I'm called up.
I like that.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to give up until I'm called up on working with this.
Yeah. And our young people needs that. They need that inspiration. They need that clarity, the ability to get focused in a distracted world. I mean, there's so many things just trying to gravitate and pull us away from our ideal path towards our purpose, right? And I know that Gen Z, the whole philosophy, and whoever's listening right now, if you haven't checked out Gen Z podcast, definitely after you get off this episode, go look them up, like, subscribe. Definitely some very fruitful information that can be applied right now, that you can take that daily challenge on implementing as you grow in personal development. Our young people that's listening right now. And also, I invite the parents, teachers, and coaches to go and invest into it as well, because we have to continue to equip ourselves to be able to relate and understand our young people. So again, James, thank you so much for what you're doing and your staff on, just preparing that Generation Z and all those others that's going to be coming forward, because they're going to be our future leaders. They're the leaders that's going to be taking care of us whenever we get older and continue on the legacy to bring amazing things to this country and to this world in general.
I really believe the youth can thrive, that they're made to thrive, and that they're not the problems that you constantly see, that there is innate good in them. We need to provide them with stuff. Chaz, we've interviewed over 2,500, did personal interviews with over 2,500 youth between the ages of 16 and 22.
Wow.
And I asked them, a series of questions, but the main question I was looking for is what they thought was the main problem that youth were encountering today. And then we took those 2,500 answers and we kind of grouped them together, put them into categories. This was very unacademic. This was very basic. This was not, the professors that I work with at the youth development program at Clemson University, they would frown upon the way we did this, but we categorized them into 3 categories. And there's 3 major issues that youth are facing. And those who are listening, you're going to hear these things and you're going to say, yeah, you're right. The number one issue, the one that was the most commonly spoken, was self-image. They struggle identifying who they are and finding their worth. They don't know who they are. They don't know whose they are. And that just totally destroys. They can't be successful if they look at themselves as a failure. They can't be successful if they do not feel like they're of value. That they feel like that there's nothing inside of them that's worth giving to this world.
Wow.
Number one problem. Second biggest one is relationships. They do not know how to build effective relationships. Everything's virtual. If some of them didn't have this aspect right here, they wouldn't know how to even talk to people anymore.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to this person that was all distressed that they had just broken up with their girlfriend. A parent wanted me to talk to this young man. I said, "Hey, I just broke up with my girlfriend. He's broke up with his girlfriend." Talking with me on the phone. They had never even met one on one.
Wow.
I'm like, what? You're not dating anybody. You never even met. Well, we FaceTime every night. It's not meeting. We
Exactly.
text all the time. That's not communicating. They don't know how to do that. So they don't know how to form effective relationships. You combine having poor self-image with poor relationship skills. You got kids who are susceptible to peer pressure, and you've got youth who are really susceptible to bullying.
Mm.
And we got to do something about that. We see those results too often in the news about the bad results of bullying, and we can do something about it. And the last one is they just lack the ability to set goals to try to achieve things in life. They don't know how to set goals. They don't see the value of dreaming. Or if they do dream, they don't know how to take that dream and turn it to a goal. Or if they have a goal, they don't know how to take that goal and make a plan so they can achieve it. And those three things we can do something about. And that's what we've committed to, is training young people how to teach those things to their own group, their own peer group.
Wow. That is so much gold that was just given right now. Whoever's listening, hopefully you took that down. Number one was self-image. Number two is relationships. Number three is setting goals. And I wholeheartedly agree with and resonate with what you're sharing. Me working with younger people as well. Those are the key foundations that we have to cover, is understanding, hey, you do have a voice. Having accountability around you is important, and getting real clear on those goals. I know, long story short, I was doing a talk once, and I had a kid come up and do 10 push-ups, obviously, and he did it. But then I had them do a 10 push-ups, but do it in 10 seconds. So I had them do 10 push-ups in 10 seconds. Obviously, the pace that they used was a lot faster because they had a time limit to do those push-ups. And where I'm getting at is whenever we have something established, a goal or more clarity, we tend to do things a little bit more quicker versus if we're just doing it just because. That makes sense. And that setting goal part, man, it really made me think about that. Is like whenever we have something that we're striving for, it will become a little bit more magnetic due to that clarity, and we're able to strive to achieve that ideal or that dream, whatever's set in store. But man, that's really good stuff. And I know the audience took a lot from what you just shared, James. I know they're like, man, I want to get more in front of what James has going on with Gen Z and some of his other ideals. Can you share your contact information? Also share some things that you may have be coming up later on here in 2021 that you're working on, anything we can be praying about? What comes to mind?
Well, the first thing, if they want to reach out and find information about us, they can obviously go to Generation Ziglar, ZIGLAR.com. I mean, GenerationZiglar.com is our main website. You can find out information there. To find our podcast, to find this wonderful interview we have with Mr. Chaz Jackson, they can go, they can look us up on YouTube. Also, Generation Ziglar there. Very easy to find, and they'll find 60 or so episodes, I believe, of the podcast that we have, that we release. We'll be taking the video podcast. We'll be taking the rest of the summer off and then start a new season in September. If we have young people, especially if you're in the Texas area, and you are late teens to early 20s, and you want to make a difference in your generation, we're going to be doing a certification training where we train you in this curriculum we just talked about, in the areas of self-image, relationships, and goals, so that you can go out and share that information with your generation, whether it is through, doing a workshop in a classroom, sharing it in the youth group, coaching, one-on-one with some friends, or maybe you want to speak in front of a small group, or maybe even a large group. We're doing a certification with that. And if you want to learn more about that, if you go to Ziglaryouth.com, That's our website that'll talk about that. You can find out information about that, find out how to enroll about that, and email us too on there if you want additional information. Those are the major areas on that. My contact information, anything you send, any of that will be forwarded to me. If you go to Ziglar Youth or GenerationZiglar.com, both of those, it'll come to me. And we want to talk to you. We want to help you. We want to train you. We have over 150 young people who are certified by us. We're hoping to expand. We will be doing a coaching program for adults, so adult youth workers. Adults who work with youth who want to be certified too on how to work with youth, on the principles of working with youth. We're going to launch that this fall. So that's going to be our major emphasis. And once September hits, you're going to see that coming out of us like crazy. It'll be all over our social media channels. So.
Boom. Hey, my man came off the top rope like Randy Savage, dropped the elbow. Amazing information, man. Amazing information. I look forward to seeing how all that turns out and supporting. And again,
from a man who lives close to Charlotte, you should have used Ric Flair instead of Randy Savage. I mean, that's.
Hey, I was a macho.
Come on, man. I know where you grew up.
I like Ric Flair, man. Those robes was pretty flashy. And interesting. Like my uncle, I never seen Ric Flair, but he swear up and down he stayed down the street from Ric Flair. But I don't know. I never had an opportunity to read it. I think it was just.
You probably didn't live 30, 40 minutes from him.
Yeah, I guess everybody in Charlotte stay close to Ric Flair in some way or fashion. But again, thank you for shining your light for the audience, and this has been such a treat. And I look forward to seeing all the ideas that you have coming forward, and seeing how things grow and continue to be influenced by James Mclamb and the Gen Z Foundation. But I want each and every one of you to stay up with GNG. More episodes coming soon. I want you to do two things for me. Keep that crown on your heart. And please remember this. We are God's echo. I love each and every one of you. Peace.